Environment Minister Guilbeault comes before the Sustainable Development Committee and tries to deny that he is hoping to impose a carbon tax on all shipping in the world. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Now, I've done a reaction from this committee meeting, but there was so much that happened in it, and I thought, let me put this one up under the versus so you guys can just hear it. There's a lot of snapping and snarling across the floor at each other. MP Guilbeault's a tough talk until he gets cornered or until he gets proven to be incorrect, and then he runs and hides.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to circle back on your comments regarding the idea of creating a new global carbon tax on international shipping, which would amount to Canadians' money being sent abroad, I guess.
Sorry.
Well, no, I was just looking. I know you said that earlier, Minister, but I see the quote is, "We are very supportive of the discussions that are helping at the International Marine Organization to put in place some kind of levy on international marine transportation." Now, in Canadian context, when you call the carbon levy here, it's the carbon tax. We all know that. So I have to assume that this is a global or international carbon tax that you are espousing here. So my question to you is, we go out and talk to our constituents. You know, we get a sense of what's going on the ground. Do you honestly believe that Canadians can afford another carbon tax right now?
What you're saying is simply not true. What I have said is that there are discussions at the International Maritime Organization, and we're part of those discussions.
Why would you be discussing if you don't plan on doing it?
There's a discussion on a number of issues at the International Maritime
What do you discuss that you don't plan on doing that? Like, why would you have international discussions if you don't plan on acting on them? What an odd waste of time.
Well, it's a complex problem. We're looking at different. There's conversation on a number of different issues that Canada is a part of. Some of these things will take place, some won't.
Excuse me. This is disintegrating. I've stopped the clock. Well, we have to have one person speaking at a time, in a Q&A format. So I'm going to start up again now. I guess you had the floor, Minister, I suppose. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
En fait, ce que je disais, c'est qu'il y a plusieurs sujets de conversation.
What I was saying is that at the International Maritime Organization, there are many topics on the table and discussions, and Canada's part of those discussions. We're discussing these many issues with many stakeholders.
Okay, well, let's turn to the carbon tax we know here in Canada that exists. Like right now, I'm from Manitoba. It's cold. It's going to get colder. And when I talk to seniors, families, anybody, and they're legitimately at times in tears saying, I have to heat my home, the prices are going up, I also want to feed my kids or myself reasonably nutritious food, and they're having to make tough choices. And again, I'll go back to what I suggested to you earlier, is that when we talk to people, we're aware of the challenges that people are facing. I think it's you can look at GDP numbers, things like that, but when you talk to a human, you understand the challenges that they're facing, or at least I hope you do. So my question is, as a government that espouses the idea of compassion, how do you think it's reasonable to further drive people into energy poverty with a continuous increase in the carbon tax year over year? Well, as per the Environment Commissioner's report, it's not successfully hitting the targets that you're aiming at.
Je suis en désaccord avec à peu près tout ce que le député vient de dire.
I agree with basically everything the member just said, Mr. Chair. The federal carbon pricing applies directly and provides more money to Canadians than what it actually costs them at the end of the day. And if the member was so concerned about the living conditions of his constituents, why did he vote down the increase in the Canada Child Benefit and in the dental plan? And why did he not want to reduce the age of eligibility?
My time, Minister.
C'est un peu difficile à comprendre, Monsieur le Président.
Minister, could I come back to the relevance of the emissions reduction targets, which is the focus of this meeting. Now, last week, one of your officials said that there are additional measures that need to be adopted to meet your emission targets. And earlier in your testimony, it seemed to be very much at odds with what we've heard you say, your parliamentary secretary say, in terms of, I'll quote the parliamentary secretary, "We are ahead of our initial 2030 target and firmly on track to meet the targets set out in our 2030 emissions reduction plan," end quote. Correct me if I'm wrong, you said we have a, quote, fair shot at meeting our 2030 targets in your
Point of
opening
order,
remarks?
Mr. Chair.
How would you connect those two different statements?
Sorry, Mr. Van Coorden has a point of order.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. And I know this member is like particularly fond of misinformation, but he's used that quote a couple of times out of context. And I think it's
Not a
really
point of
important
order,
that if
really.
we're going to quote each other in these types of debates, that we stick to the facts.
I understand, but it's not a point of order.
Thanks,
Okay.
you're not chairing today.
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. Chair. Just
Yeah.
when it comes to the repetition of inaccurate information, the House of Commons procedures book actually has, in Chapter 3, talks about when inaccurate information is repeated again and again and again, that it can actually be considered unparliamentary.
I don't know if it's accurate or not. I'm trying to, to be honest with you.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yes.
Thanks, and I appreciate that. I know that we're not supposed to accuse members of lying, but when they mischaracterize, especially each other's comments, and in this case it's been brought up a couple of times, there is an original.
I don't know what, I mean, this is why we have a discussion, to get to the bottom of it, to find out the truth. And I'd like to keep the discussion going. If we could continue, I don't know who had the floor now. It was Mr. Leslie. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In that same Environment Commissioner's report, it talked about a failure to conduct value for money audits on your climate programs, broadly speaking, which obviously is concerning, particularly with the current green slush fund that's gridlocked Parliament and your refusal as a government to hand over the documents. The Net Zero Accelerator Fund, which we are trying to decipher through, despite our parliamentary request of this committee, very much redacted documents. Will you commit to, in the future, and ideally going backwards, having value for money audits, and in particular as it relates to the Net Zero Accelerator Fund, a actual number of emissions to be agreed upon as part of those contracts?
Évidemment, pour la
Obviously, when it comes to most of the programs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we work with all partners to ensure that the objectives that are in the contracts are achieved by the businesses. There are a whole array of mechanisms we use: tax measures, direct investments, regulations. So saying that there's just one mechanism we use to reach our objectives is overly simplistic and doesn't reflect reality.
How come every time they want to talk about the carbon pricing, carbon tax, all I can hear them talk about is dental? All I can hear them talk about is childcare. Those things are not making us money. Those things are not improving the quality of life of every Canadian. The carbon tax is impacting the life of every Canadian, including the smallest baby in the daycare, including the oldest person getting a denture. So I don't know where in his mind that somehow it's offsetting it or it's making a balance. It is not doing any of that thing. All you did was target single mothers so you could hope to get a vote, and you target seniors because you know seniors are of a demographic that likes to vote in high droves. You're not trying to help people as you sit there in your many $1,000 suit telling people that they should be cutting corners. I get so angry when I think about the Liberals starving people and freezing them just like we were living in communist Russia or communist China. Right? Like somehow we're living under Mao so that he can tell the world that he's making some impact. He's making no impact. He's freezing people out, poor people. He's robbing them of their money. He's crushing their lives. He's destroying their lives. And all they can say is, oh, well, we have a carbon rebate, which we all know does not put anywhere near amount of money that's costing you to live your life anywhere close to the amount. There's only one section of people, and those people are the poorest of the poor. But who knows what their power bills are going to be like in the middle of the winter? Are they walking around in snowsuits all day long? Otherwise, people are suffering because of these decisions. And these Liberals try to hide and mask and misinformation everywhere you go. I mean, how many times do I got to hear these Liberals talk about how, oh, it puts more money in your pocket when everybody knows that that's just not the truth? But they don't care about the truth. They only care about their ideological agenda. They will starve and freeze us all into oblivion. So for what? For what are they gaining, though? It makes me so mad. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'll talk to you next time.